At 05 Lyre, the temperature read minus 71 degrees Celsius. The air held no movement, only suspended crystals that reflected a faint shimmer under the headlamp beam. Each exhale struck the tent wall and froze, building a thin, brittle film of frost that fractured with minor shifts. The generator outside had ceased during the night. Without its vibration, the silence pressed inward, dense enough to feel through the chest cavity. Routine began by sequence. Unzip the hood, rise slowly to prevent tearing frozen fabric, flex fingers until circulation resumed. Rifle positioned right of the board. Batteries kept against body heat. Water sealed but solid. Air intake through mask-burned nasal passages. Watch lens clouded and cleared in steady rhythm. No residual scent of fuel. No low hum through the ground sheet. Complete acoustic vacuum. The tent material contracted audibly and short. Dry pulses as temperature equalized. Each sound resembled a minute fracture in glass. Frost accumulated on contact points where the inner surface met exhaled moisture. Log entry made. 0513. Silence total, visibility none, surface intact. Pencil tip failed twice from cold stress before the mark held. A single echo drifted from distance, possible ice shift, carried unnaturally far by dense air, then vanished. No prints visible through the frost window. No ripple in the snow crust. The environment had converted to pure static mass. In this condition, motion, scent, and decay were absent. Exhaled breath froze before settling. The only visible evidence that time continued to pass. The tundra extended in all directions without variation. An unbroken field of white under low aurora light. No horizon line separated ground from sky. Only a faint green reflection curved above the snow surface. Darkness had mass, pressing downward until distance lost meaning. Sound traveled abnormally far, clear but distorted, and movement seemed to stall before completing. The camp was arranged by protocol. A single heavy tent anchored with buried ice stakes marked the center. Inside, the stove occupied the corner near the vent pipe. Fuel canisters stacked along the wall in sequence by volume and date. Opposite stood a narrow sleeping platform of wooden boards fixed on sled runners to prevent freezing into the base layer. Outside, the supply sled sat partially buried, straps frozen into rigid arcs. Metal fittings opaque under frost. Daily operations followed a fixed order. Ice melted for water in an aluminum pot with the lid, slightly ajar to vent trapped air and prevent base deformation. Tinned meat heated slowly over minimal flame, rotated for even pressure before opening. Puncturing early could fracture the metal or eject frozen fat. Rifle chamber cleaned with dry cloth only, no oil, as all liquid lubricants solidified in current temperature range. Temperature logged hourly in block print. Pencil leads snapped regularly. Paper fibers stiffened with crystal formation. Meals served by requirement. Not preference, half tin of preserved meat. 2 hard biscuits. Reheated tea when fuel permitted. Consumption brief. Gloves removed only for utensil use. Then wiped dry before refreezing. Moisture left unchecked produced an ice film in seconds. Waste controlled by identical precision. All residue and packaging sealed in containers. Buried 30 meters downwind in a narrow trench cut into compacted snow. No scent trace remained. Conversation minimized after dark. Sound transmission carried beyond expected range. In such air density, any presence, animal or mechanical, could detect noise far before it could be seen. That night, the wolves became audible. Their howls moved through the frozen air as steady. Unbroken tones, directionless but near enough to register through the chest. The carcass site showed new disturbance. A smaller wolf had dragged part of the hide closer to the camp, likely drawn by the scent line leading from the buried waste trench. To limit attraction, all rations were resecured. Sealed tins were locked inside the sled's aluminum box and bound under a rope tarp. The cooking area was dismantled and reassembled 15 meters downwind near the fuel wall. Every trace of grease or residue was scraped and burned, the process lasting nearly 2 hours under erratic headlamp light. Sleep reduced to rotation, 40 minutes rest, 40 minutes watch. The constant glare from the lamp strained vision until the dark appeared grainy. Each time the camp fell silent, movement resumed beyond the ridge, shapes pacing, stopping, unseen but deliberate. At 03:20, a flare was fired. The white flash spread across the plain for 100 meters. Several dark forms turned instantly, retreating in arcs behind the ridge. Within minutes, silence reformed. broken only by the faint crunch of paws in the snow. By dawn, fresh tracks ringed the camp, uneven but closer, some within 40 meters. The wolves had approached, tested reaction, and pulled back again. Each night, the distance of their patience shortened. The thermometer failed. The alcohol column froze below its limit. Temperature became observable only through material change. Fabric split when flexed, leather straps hardened, and breath condensed into flakes that refroze at the corners of the mouth. Ice formed over facial hair and lashes until movement required deliberate effort. Fuel supply reached critical. 3 of 12 canisters remained usable. The others solidified at the valves. Rationing was fixed to 2 burns daily, 7 hour for melting ice and heating food, 20 were for stabilizing temperature before rest. Flame height minimal. The pot stayed on until half a liter of water liquefied, then extinguished. Remaining kerosene recorded by weight. Inside the sleeping bag, frost accumulated from both directions. Moisture freezing inward, exterior coated by condensed air. Insulation reduced to half efficiency. Movement limited to hand and foot adjustments to preserve blood flow. At midday, the radio was tested. Battery voltage too low. Signal lost to static. The antenna wire had snapped at the base. Tape repair failed under tension. Communication restricted to visual range. Ammunition remained sealed. The rifle was checked for ice, never fired. No wolves visible. Tracks wider spaced. Pace reduced, likely slowed by the same conditions. Decisions ended. Function continued on schedule only. Heat, intake, rest, observation. Precision replaced judgment. Survival reduced to system maintenance. By the 3rd day, air movement resumed. A steady northwest wind carried fine snow that erased old tracks within minutes. Canvas rippled, guy lines hummed, and the long silence fractured into steady background sound. The dispersing scent line worked. No new wolf prints formed. Through binoculars, faint motion appeared far along the ridge, shapes moving east, dissolving into haze. Once the wind stabilized, inspection began. The snow surface had crusted over, smooth and reflective. Former paw marks were half filled, their edges softened by drift. The carcass site showed nothing visible, either buried or carried off. Repairs followed sequence. The frozen zipper was thawed with a candle stub and resealed with a metal pick. The stovepipe coupling, cracked from stress, was bound with wire. Gloves removed only for seconds. Fingers remained slow but functional. Early frost burn treated inside mitts. Inventory log, 18-20 hours. Fuel 6 canisters usable. Food 7 days at half ration. Rifle, clean. Chamber clear. Temperature, below scale. Internal air stable near stove. The camp regained operational balance. Wind replaced stillness. Predators withdrew, and noise returned to ordinary rhythm. No sense of recovery, only resumed function. Each task restored until the system held steady again. Log entry, 22:45 hours. Negative 71 degrees centigrade night survived. Wolves moved east. Equipment intact. Ink frozen, notation made in pencil. Pressure cutting faint grooves into the paper. Thermometer unreadable. Temperature field left blank. Entry recorded as data only. Interior restored to standard layout. Stove extinguished. Vent closed. Rifle aligned on the board. Gloves opened across the sleeping bag to dry. Inspection deferred until first light. Outside, wind continued at fixed intervals. Clearing all trace of motion, tracks, trenches, and the reindeer site reduced to level snow. Operations resumed their cycle. Each night repeated the same pattern. Regulate fuel. Preserve heat. Maintain watch. Divide rest. Input and output held in strict ratio. Endurance became calculation, not sentiment beyond the fabric. The tundra stayed unchanged. Air stars. Aurora all static. The wolves had withdrawn, but only by distance. In this field, nothing ends. It resets to waiting form, ready for the next condition to occur.